he was willing to detail his own political autobiography, but he had compunctions about naming those who had served with him. "I would prefer, if you would allow me, not to mention other people's names. This is not the American way," added Parks. "To force a man to do this is not American justice." Chairman Wood said he was not going to press the point unless other members of the committee wished to, and Congressman Francis E. Walter of Pennsylvania, who in 1954 assumed the chair himself, seemed to agree. "How can it be material to the purpose of this inquiry to have the names of people when we already know them?" he asked. "Why is it so essential that we know the names of all the people when we have a witness who may make a contribution to what we're trying to learn? Isn't it far more important to learn the extent of the activity and what the purpose of the organization actually was than to get a long list of names of bleeding hearts and fools, suckers, hard-boiled communist politicians? As long as we have a witness willing and anxious to cooperate in carrying out what I conceive to be our purpose, I think the rest is all immaterial." In the afternoon session, Parks pleaded with the committee. "Don't present me with the choice of either being in contempt of this committee and going to jail or forcing me to really crawl through the mud to be an informer. For what purpose?" But Parks's plea was rejected. The committee went into executive session, and 2 days later it was leaked to the press that Parks had succumbed and named the names. By talking about himself, he had waived the right to refuse to talk about others, the committee insisted. Of course, the committee could have granted Parks's request as a matter of decency, even if not of legal right, but it refused to do so. "The ultimate test of the credibility of a witness," Congressman Donald L. Jackson of California later explained, "is the extent to which he is willing to cooperate with the committee in giving full details as to not only the place of activities, but also the names of those who participated with him in the Communist Party." It should be noted, however, that the issue of credibility did not go to the evidence being presented, for neither Jackson nor anyone else seriously disputed Walter's concession that HUAC already had the evidence it was allegedly seeking. Rather, the committee was in essence serving as a kind of national parole board, whose job was to determine whether the criminals had truly repented of their evil ways. Only by a witness's naming names and giving details, it was said, could the committee be certain that his break with the past was genuine. The demand for names was not a quest for evidence. It was a test of character. The naming of names had shifted from a means to an end. From that day forward, those called to testify were advised by their attorneys that they had 3 choices: to invoke the First Amendment, with its guarantee of free speech and association, and risk going to prison for contempt of Congress, like the Hollywood 10; to invoke the Fifth Amendment, with its privilege against self-incrimination, and lose their jobs. Howard De Silva and Gail Sondergaard, who followed Parks onto the stand that day, refused to answer the committee, citing the Fifth Amendment, and were quickly excused and quickly blacklisted. Or to cooperate with the committee and name names and hope to continue working, as Sterling Hayden did, the first witness after Larry Parks to name names. The ground rules for the decade were set. Playing the informer runs against the American grain, as Parks rightly indicated. As a people, we start out with presumptions against certain activities, and among these prescribed undertakings are lying, theft, murder, incest, treason, and informing. And informing ranks high on this dark list. In the abstract, many Americans would probably subscribe to E.M. Forster's famous sentiment, "If I had to choose between betraying my country and betraying my friend, I hope I should have the guts to betray my country." Going into the 1950s, the image of the informer most Americans carried had been set, in no small part, by Hollywood. Thus, in prison pictures, the only character more predictable than the sadistic guard, or doc, the alcoholic medic, was the stoolie who gets his comeuppance. In Brute Force, 1947, directed by Jules Dassin, who was later blacklisted, an inmate sums up the prevailing perspective when he says to Hume Cronyn, the sadistic.
To keep listening to this audiobook for free, click the link in the description. It will take you to a free Audible trial where you can listen to this and many other books for free for 30 days.